There, okay. All right, we have sound now. So I wanted to start out with a little Woody Guthrie song. And if you've grown up in public school in the United States, you've undoubtedly heard that song before. And I think it does a great job of capturing like the beauty of America and just the sense of majesty and the sense of awe from the natural beauty. And wherever you're from in the United States, you have the kind of that sense of beauty. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I was born in Tacoma, spent most of my childhood there. I'm going to go around real quick. Kind of tell me what state you're from. So what states do we have out here? Louisiana. All right, great. Michigan. Awesome. Florida. Texas. Okay. Wisconsin. Missouri. All right, so we got a good mix of states. So what does the song have to do with voting? Well, I think when we live abroad, we live outside the United States, one of the ways we can stay connected to our home country is through civic participation. And probably the most powerful, the most profound way to participate is through voting. And this year happens to be an election year. And so as somebody who works in the consular section, part of my responsibility is to assist with voting. Do we want to do the introduction? Or, sorry, I think we kind of skipped over that. Okay, all right. I'll cede the stage to my friends here then, yeah.
Hi. So my name is Suri.
My name is Cristina.
My name is Roberto.
And we're students of the IB History of the Americas course. And we're here to introduce Mr. Daniel Lynch, who is an officer of the consular section, as well as the officer of voting. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through how to register as an absentee voter and how to vote. So it's the two-step process. How do you register? How do you get your absentee ballot? And how do you vote? So hopefully this is useful not just to the people in this room, but also anybody who happens to be joining us on our live stream or who happens to be watching this afterwards. Hopefully this is a good overview of how to participate as an overseas voter. And as I will say repeatedly during this presentation, you can always go to fvap.gov for more information. I'll be referencing that site a lot as we move forward in our presentation. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to start with a quote from MLK, and I'm just going to read the quote here on the slide. So long as I do not firmly and irrevocably possess the right to vote, I do not possess myself. I cannot make up my mind. It is made up for me. I cannot live as a democratic citizen observing the laws I have helped to enact. I can only submit to the edicts of others. So I chose this quote because I think this highlights just the importance of voting. And if we don't vote, if we don't participate, then our democracy can't work for us. So MLK really understood this well. He gave this speech in 1957, before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act, when there was mass disenfranchisement of African Americans. It was very, very difficult to vote. And part of his legacy was expanding the right to vote and making our country more democratic. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so here's what we're going to go over today. We're going to talk about the federal postcard application, which is what you have in your hands there. That's really the key to registering as an overseas voter. And I'm going to walk you through every section of that and what you need to put on the FPCA and how you can submit that. So real quick, that first bullet on there, the Uniform and Overseas Absentee Voting Act. So this is the legal basis that allows Americans overseas to vote. So UOCAVA applies to U.S. citizens who are members of the Uniformed Services, their family members, and any U.S. resident residing overseas. Okay, so that's the legal basis for overseas voting. Everything I'm going to provide today comes from UOCAVA. And then the FPCA, this is the federal postcard application. So this is what allows you to register to vote in your legal state of residence. And it is highly recommended that you submit a new FPCA on January 1st. So every time you submit the FPCA, it will be good for all federal elections in that calendar year. So you'll have to do this continuously, especially if you live abroad for multiple years, or in our case with embassy personnel, we're constantly moving, constantly going to different assignments. So it's highly recommended that you submit an FPCA every year. If you haven't done it yet this year, that's totally fine. If you've never done it, there's still time to get that FPCA in and get registered to vote for the November election. And then what are your options for filling it out? So you really have two options. You can fill it out by hand, or you can go to ffab.gov, and there's a little super handy tutorial. Sarah and I did it earlier today, and you can just fill it out electronically, and then it will give you a PDF, and you just print out the PDF. So it's super easy. They give you multiple ways to do this. And then submitting the FPCA, two options: mail. You can mail in a hard copy, or what I strongly recommend is that you email it. So every state allows you to email the FPCA. You do not have to send in a hard copy. All you need to do is fill it out, scan it, create a digital file, and then, and I'll go into this more in a later slide, you just email it to your local elections office, and that's determined by where you're registering to vote. Okay, so you've sent in the FPCA, and you're going to receive your absentee ballot. So how do you receive the absentee ballot? Well, fortunately, again, this can happen electronically. So when you fill out the FPCA, you're going to mark how you want to receive your ballot. Do you want to receive a hard copy in the mail, or do you want to receive an email version? Again, I highly recommend the email version, especially us living overseas. It can take a long time for mail to get here, in weeks, months, sometimes. I think, Nicole, you told me that you had a ballot that took months to get here. So we want to avoid that. So as much as possible, we want to do everything by email. So I really recommend you go with the email option to get your absentee ballot. Okay, and so now you're at the point where you have your absentee ballot, you're ready to cast your vote. How do you get that ballot in? So here's where it differs by state. Okay, I'm going to say this a lot. Every state has different requirements. So a lot of states, I think actually most states, allow you to actually email your ballot. Okay, so you can fill it out, scan it, email it to your election office. You're good, you're done. You have successfully voted. Some states do not allow you to email your ballot. So in that case, you have to mail in a hard copy. So it's really important that you go to ffab.gov, check your state requirements, and it will be very clear what you can and can't do. In our case, we're registered in DC. DC makes it very easy. We can do everything electronically. Once we get that ballot, we're gonna send it in by email, and then we're good to go. All right, next slide, please. All right, so let's take a look at the FPCA. So section part 1, you're gonna put in your personal information, just basic biographical data. And then you can put in your social security number or your driver's license or state ID number. If you're going to use your driver's license or state ID number, make sure that matches whatever state you're registering in. Then the next part is the eligibility to claim residence. Okay, so this is not entirely intuitive, so this part's important. So election offices will use this address to determine your eligibility to vote absentee and to send the correct ballot for your precinct. So it's really important that you put the correct address here. For most overseas citizens, this address is usually the last place you lived before you moved overseas. So in the case of Sarah and I, we moved here from DC almost a year ago. So the last apartment we lived in DC before we moved here, that's the address that we're putting on the FPCA. Because that's the last place we had a physical residence in the United States. So you can use this address even if you no longer own property or never own property in that state, even if you have no other ties to that state, even if you don't know if you'll ever return to that state. Doesn't matter. If that was your previous address, that's the last place you lived, then you can use that for registration purposes. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? We'll also have time for questions at the end. All right, next slide, please. All right, here we go. So parts 3 through 4. Okay, so your current address. So for Embassy multi-personnel, this is pretty easy for us because we have access to the DPO and the APO. Now for you guys, just use whatever address you have here, which you use to receive mail. Whatever that is, put that on here. And if you end up requesting your ballot by email, this is not going to matter because they're not going to actually send you something physically in the mail. But we do have to fill it out for the purposes of the FPCA. And then block 4, contact information. Highly, highly recommend you, at a minimum, include your email. That way, if an election official has a problem, if there's a problem with your FPCA, or if they have questions, they have some way to contact you. So definitely put your email in that block. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, preferences for voting. All right, so this is something that I mentioned earlier. How do you want to receive your absentee ballot? So you have 2 options. You can get it in the mail or you can receive it by email. Again, every state allows you to receive your ballot by email. So regardless of what state you're registered in, you have that option to get it by email. And then in the section on political party, this is only required for primary elections, and that's pretty much not applicable at this point because we're getting ready to go into the general election. So you can just leave that blank. And then additional information for almost everyone for that block, you're just going to leave it blank. The only exception to that is if you are registered in Vermont, you must sign and acknowledge something called the Vermont Voters Oath, which is, Vermont is special. They are the only state that requires this. So if you are one of those people that's registered in Vermont, you do have to figure out what that is and acknowledge that you have taken the Vermont Voters Oath and then sign there. But everyone else, leave it blank. And then do not forget to sign and date. Your FPCA will not be valid if you don't sign or date that form. Okay, so that's at the bottom. All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, so submitting your FPCA. As I mentioned, email is by far the easiest way to submit your FPCA. If you do want to send in a hard copy, that is an option. So the FPCA that you have in your hand right now, that is very easy to send in by mail. All you need to do is fold it, and it's a postage paid. There's a postage paid label on the back. So if you do want to send it in by mail, what you can do is you can come by the embassy to post 3. We have a box in post 3, and you can drop that off, and then we will send it through embassy mail. If you send it through Honduran mail, you will have to pay for that. The prepaid postage label doesn't work. But like I said, you can come by the embassy. I have a map here, which shows you this is where post 3 is. You can just pop in there, drop it in the box, and we'll make sure that it's sent in embassy mail. That's if you want to send it by mail. Again, highly recommend email. That's going to be your best bet. All right. Okay, let's keep moving. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about submitting your absentee ballot. So as I mentioned, Every state has different requirements. Some states allow for you to send it by email. Some states only allow you to send it in by mail, hard copy basically. Some states also allow fax. So fax, I was recently informed that the embassy still has a fax machine for some reason. So if you have a fax machine here at AST, that is also an option.
I use a fax app.
Okay,
So I'm in Florida, so yeah.
there you go. So you potentially have three options depending on your state: email, fax, or sending in a hard copy. FVAP.gov. FVAP.gov, super easy resource to use. Basically, you go there, you can click on your state, and it will tell you exactly what you can and cannot do by state. If you are registered in one of those states that requires you to send in your ballot, a hard copy of your ballot, you can come by the embassy, drop it off at Post 3. We have a box there, and we'll make sure we get your ballot sent in the mail, and it'll be basically put in the diplomatic pouch and sent off to the U.S. If you do have to send it in by mail, I recommend using that method because I don't know how long the Honduran mail system takes, but you definitely don't want to run the risk of your ballot not getting to the U.S. in time and not being counted. So it's important for you to, number one, send in your ballot as soon as possible. And number two, I highly recommend using the embassy box because it's going to be a more reliable probably way to, it'll definitely be faster for you to get your ballot to your voting precinct where it'll be counted for the general election. Okay, so what if you request an absentee ballot, but we're 30 days out from the election and you have received nothing from your voting precinct? There is fortunately a backup option for you. So that backup option is called the Federal Write-In Absentee Ballot. And this can be downloaded from FVAP.gov. And basically, this will allow you to vote even if you have not received your actual ballot. It's basically the backup or the plan B. I won't go too much into this, but different states have slightly different requirements on how they treat the FWAB. For some states, like Florida, you can only use the FWAB if you have already registered to vote, like you sent in your FPCA. Other states, a little bit more flexible. Even if you've never sent in the FPCA, you've never registered to vote, you can use the FWAB to both register and vote at the same time. I won't go too much into that. This is really your backup option in case, for whatever reason, you never get your ballot. But just know that that option is there. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, I know everybody's curious about this. Voting timeline. When do I have to get all this stuff done? So I really recommend as soon as possible that you send in your FPCA. Okay, so every state has different deadlines for submitting the FPCA. For some states, that deadline is as early as October 7th. Okay, so we still got a little bit of time. We got 5-6 weeks until we start running into those really early deadlines, but it's definitely not something you want to procrastinate. You definitely want to get it done as soon as possible. That way you can just breathe easy and know that you're on the right timeline and your vote's going to count. In terms of when you're going to get your ballot, okay, so election officials, they're supposed to send the ballots no later than 45 days before an election. So which in our case is September 21st. So if you send in your FPCA tomorrow, September 21st, on or about, that's when you should be getting your ballot. Either you'll get it by email, if that's what you selected, or if you want to get it by mail, then you'll get it at some point, however long the mail takes. Yes?
If we have to mail in our ballot, we have to do Wisconsin, if I get it to the diplomatic pouch, like as soon as I receive the ballot,
Mhm.
is it expedited the mail, or is it gonna take a couple months?
No, so if it's, we do a diplomatic pouch every Wednesday, so it's a weekly shipment. And I wish I could give you a precise amount of time that it takes to get from the embassy to your voting precinct. But it definitely wouldn't be more than a couple of weeks, and probably much faster than that.
And
Yeah.
there's no appointment, you said?
Correct. No appointment. We have a box there in post 3, so you can just open the door, drop it in. Yeah.
Is post
Yes.
the front door?
So,
Post 1 is on the back
Yeah,
side,
I could
and then
go
you
back.
walk around to the front and then go up the steps. Is that post?
Is post
Sorry.
3 those X?
Yeah.
yeah, so this is post 3 right here.
Ah, that's post.
Yeah, the X right there. So this is the main Avenida La Paz.
Uh-huh.
The main entrance where the diplomatic staff enters is right here. So there's like a guard here, a guard here. This, you can just basically walk up to it.
Ah,
Yeah.
So it's
that's post 3.
outside this time?
the back part.
It's inside. So if you open that door, the box will be right there.
You don't
Okay.
need to go through the gate or anything?
The problem is, the security guards will not let us through without an appointment. I had a horrible time a few years ago,
Okay.
and other people did too, so it wasn't
I
just
have
me.
too.
They will not let us in without an appointment. They argue with us, they don't
Okay.
understand international law. It doesn't matter if you're a US citizen or not, they will not let us in.
Okay. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. So,
Somebody just needs,
yeah.
somebody needs to inform them.
okay.
Yeah.
I will address that next week to make sure that the guards are aware that we have U.S. citizens coming to drop their ballots off. So again, I apologize that was your experience, and I'll do everything in my power to make it an easier process. Yeah. Yeah, and if for some reason you're having problems, you can always email my office, the American Citizen Services section. Yeah, USA Honduras at state.gov. I will. You can relay those concerns, and then we will address them. So we'll definitely respond to you right away. But thank you again for raising that. Yes.
What about postage for our actual ballot? So this is,
Yes.
hasn't been posted. When we drop off our ballot to vote, what do we put it in?
Yeah. So your ballot is not going to require postage if you relay it through the embassy mail, basically. So I don't know quite how this works, but I believe that when you receive your ballot, there should be well, on ff.gov, you can print out a label for an envelope. It's like a label that says like official ballot mail, no postage necessary. And basically you can put that on an envelope, put your ballot in there, and then drop it off. But yeah, you should not have to pay, if it's going through the US mail system, which includes the embassy, you won't have to pay postage for that, yeah. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so yeah, 30 days before Election Day, that's the recommended timeline basically to send in your ballot. Emailing, or if emailing is not an option, sending in the hard copy. All right, next slide. Okay, so I have this slide up here. These are suffragettes basically protesting outside the White House and demanding the right to vote. I have this on here because I actually did this presentation earlier this week for an embassy event, which was celebrating the passage of the 19th Amendment. And I think this is a great way to end the presentation and kind of bookending everything. And it just highlights the importance of make your democracy work for you. And if we don't vote, then our democracy really can't represent our interests. So highly recommend that get that FPCA in as soon as possible. All right. Do we have any other questions? Yes.
So I lived in New York, but my last physical address is in Florida.
Yes.
So that's the state that I'm voting in.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Whatever your last residence was before you moved overseas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't really address this in earlier, but there actually are provisions if you're a U.S. citizen and you've never lived in the United States, which does apply to some people. Some states have passed legislation which will allow you to vote. And you can, in some of these states, you can use your parents' last residence as the basis for voting. So if you fall into that category, you know somebody that falls into that category, a U.S. citizen who's never lived in the U.S., you still might be eligible. So again, go to ffap.gov, check out your state requirements, and see what the requirements are for that state. All right, I'm gonna send us out with a little Get Out the Vote song, so hopefully you guys enjoy this. And now that's the end of my presentation. I want to leave you with this song. It's our democracy. If you want to really be free, sign up today and vote. Go to ffap.org. Check your state requirements. Get that FPCA sent in today. It's really not that hard. I spent 2 minutes on it last night. Get that FPCA sent in today. Don't be one of those folks that doesn't follow through. Democracy depends on you. Democracy depends on you. Democracy depends on you. All right, thank you so much for coming out and learning about voting. So I hope everyone found this information useful. And I just want to encourage everyone to get your FPCAs in. And again, if you have any questions on voting, you can reach my office at usahonduras@state.gov, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Okay, thank you.
It's great. No, when you said I am going to play a song on my ukulele, I was like, huh, okay, now it makes sense. You get it. It does. No, it truly does. Yeah.
Thanks for hosting us.
Of course. Yeah. No, thank you for coming. Yeah. And the fact that it's going to continue to be online, there are a lot of people who are like, this is not a good time, but I'm going to watch it over the weekend. All of the Ivy history of the Americas students have to watch it. You will live in infamy.
I'm immortal now.
It's true. It's true. And unrelated, but do you have kids at the school? No. Okay. Oh, thank you. Yes, we have a gift. Thank you so much. One of their jobs was to remind you to make sure that I don't interfere.
Wow, I really appreciate it.
Oh, my car, yeah, keep it. We're at the computer. Thank you. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, then just. Oh, yes, okay. Okay, I was gonna say, yeah. I will. Thank you so much for your help. We really appreciate it. For all these years. Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much.
You're also a wonderful speaker. How do you get up here on?
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm in an old school mug phase, so I was like, I want to do an old school mug.
And then they will, you can ask to have it by
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I want to like to leave some of these.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
I have a question for you as well. Are we,
You have to do this.
is it
Okay, so I went to do it.
permissible to create kind of a little ballot box here, and instead of having everyone vote MC individually,
No, Montana, that's
here, and then just bring the ballots to like Carol or something.
because Montana, I feel like it's one of those states that
So I need to check on that
don't
because
mail in
I know there's
ballots,
some
like the whole
restrictions on
Yeah, like